The wind screamed across the mountain ridge like a living thing, carrying ice crystals that cut exposed skin like microscopic knives. Captain Jake Rourke pressed his body against the frozen rock face, feeling the cold seep through 3 layers of tactical gear. December 25th, Christmas night, and they were dying in the Hindu Kush. SEAL Team 7 had been moving through these mountains for 48 hours, escorting a high-value detainee, a Taliban commander with intelligence that could collapse an entire insurgent network. The mission brief said 72 hours. Minimal contact expected. Intel had been wrong. Intel was always wrong. The blizzard had hit 6 hours ago, transforming visibility from poor to impossible. Thermal optics froze. Night vision became useless green snow. They'd been navigating by compass and instinct, following a narrow ravine that was supposed to lead to the extraction point 12 clicks north. Then the ambush came. Not random fire, not opportunistic fighters stumbling into their path. This was coordinated, planned. 3 assault elements moving in concert, closing like fingers around a throat. RPGs had announced their arrival, the distinctive whoosh crack that made every veteran's blood run cold. The first rocket had taken out their rear guard, killing Petty Officer Davis instantly and wounding 2 others. Now, they were pinned in a bottleneck, a natural kill zone where the ravine narrowed to less than 20 meters. Rocks on 3 sides, open ground behind them, swept by machine gun fire. The detainee, a lean man named Khalid, with intelligent eyes and surprisingly good English, crouched between 2 SEALs, his zip-tied hands trembling. "How many?" Lieutenant Marcus Chen shouted over the wind. Rourke did the math based on muzzle flashes and fire discipline. 30. Maybe 40. They've got us in a 3-point crossfire. Extract? 2 hours out. If we called them now. Rourke didn't mention that their radio was barely functional, the encryption struggling against atmospheric interference from the storm, or that the helo couldn't fly in these conditions anyway. Petty Officer Sarah Mitchell pressed against the rock beside him, her face a mask of ice and determination. Blood seeped through the makeshift bandage on her left arm. "We've got maybe 200 rounds total, sir. 3 grenades. And Webster's leg is bad." Rourke glanced back at their wounded. Webster, the team medic, had taken shrapnel in his thigh. He was still conscious, still functional, but losing blood. The other wounded man, Johnson, had a sucking chest wound that Webster had sealed with his last chest seal. Every breath rattled. The tactical situation was clear. They couldn't stay. They couldn't advance. They couldn't go back. And in 15 minutes, maybe 20, the enemy would coordinate a final push and roll right over them. "We move," Rourke said. His voice cut through the wind with absolute certainty. "We break contact and move north through the eastern ridgeline." "Sir, that's a 40-degree slope in whiteout conditions with 2 wounded and a detainee. You have a better idea, Lieutenant." Chen's jaw tightened. "No, sir." "Then we move. Now." Rourke's command voice, the one that had led men through 3 deployments and a dozen firefights, left no room for debate. "Mitchell, you're on point with Khalid. Chen, you've got the wounded. I'll hold rear with Hodges and Ramirez." A burst of automatic fire stitched across the rocks above them. Stone chips exploded, raining down like frozen rain. Someone was getting bold, testing their perimeter. 30 seconds, Rourke said. "Smoke and move." Mitchell pulled a smoke grenade. "Sir, in this wind." "Just do it." She popped the grenade and threw it forward. Purple smoke billowed, immediately shredded by 70-mile-per-hour gusts. It wouldn't hide them, but it might confuse thermal imaging for precious seconds. "Move, now." They ran through a landscape that looked like the surface of an alien planet. Snow horizontal in the wind, ice coating every surface. The eastern slope rose before them like a white wall that disappeared into darkness. Mitchell led, half-dragging Khalid by his jacket. The detainee stumbled, but kept moving, his survival instinct overriding exhaustion. Behind them, Chen and Ramirez carried Webster in a hasty 2-man chair carry. Johnson moved on his own, one hand pressed to his chest, the other gripping his rifle. His breath came in short, labored gasps. Rourke and Hodges brought up the rear, moving backward. Weapons trained on the kill zone they'd just abandoned. The enemy fire increased, wild bursts probing the darkness. They had no idea SEAL 7 was moving yet. That wouldn't last. "Contact right!" Hodges fired a 3-round burst. A figure went down in the snow. More shadows moved in the white chaos. They'd been flanking, trying to cut off the exact escape route Rourke had chosen. Keep moving, Rourke fired, dropped, moved, fired again. The muscle memory of countless drills and real-world gunfights. He burned through half a magazine in 15 seconds, forcing the flankers to take cover. The slope was brutal. Chen slipped, nearly dropping Webster. Mitchell grabbed a ice-covered rock for support and felt it give way, tumbling into the darkness below. Khalid fell to his knees, gasping. "Get him up," Mitchell snarled, hauling the detainee to his feet. "You don't get to quit." Behind them, the enemy fire intensified. Rourke heard commands in Pashto, organized, disciplined. These weren't farm boys with AKs. These were trained fighters who knew terrain and tactics. A mortar round impacted 30 meters downslope. Then another. They were walking the fire up the ridge, feeling for range. "Faster!" Rourke roared. "They've got indirect." The next round hit close enough that the concussion knocked Johnson flat. He tried to rise, fell again. Chen turned back. "Leave me," Johnson wheezed. Blood bubbled at his lips. "Shut up," Chen said, grabbing his gear harness and dragging him forward. They crested a small ridgeline and dropped into partial cover behind a jumble of boulders. Everyone collapsed, gasping. The wind howled around them, a constant roar that made communication nearly impossible. Rourke checked his watch. They'd covered maybe 200 meters. The extraction point was still 11 clicks away. Webster's leg was bleeding through the bandage. Johnson was gray-faced, going into shock, and ammunition was critical. He crawled to Mitchell. "Status? We've got maybe 100 rounds total now, sir. We left the ammo can with Davis." Rourke felt the weight of command settle on his chest like a physical thing. The mathematics of survival were simple and brutal. They couldn't outrun the enemy. They couldn't outfight them. In 15 minutes, maybe less, the pursuers would organize a coordinated assault, and it would be over. He thought about Sarah, his wife, 9 months pregnant with their first child. He thought about the letter he'd written before deployment, the one that started. If you're reading this, he thought about all the Christmases he'd missed, all the promises to be home next year. Hodges appeared beside him, snow caking his beard. "Sir, we're not making it out of this one, are we?" Rourke met his eyes. Saw the same calculation, the same understanding. "No, probably not. Then we make them pay for every inch." "That's the plan." A young SEAL named Patterson crawled over, his face pale. "Sir, you remember those stories about the ghost sniper?" "Fairy tales," Mitchell said. "Urban legends to make new guys feel better. I heard it was real. A sniper who saved a ranger platoon in Helmand took out 15 Taliban from positions that shouldn't have been possible." "There's no ghost sniper," Rourke said. But even as he said it, he felt a strange pull, a desperate hope he couldn't quite suppress. Every military has its myths. The stories soldiers tell to remind themselves that sometimes, against all odds, someone survives. Focus on what's real. We've got maybe 10 minutes before they organize another push. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of voices, orders being given, equipment being moved. The enemy was preparing for the final assault. Rourke distributed ammunition, 15 rounds per man, 3 for the wounded, 1 grenade each for himself and Mitchell. It was the kind of inventory that made clear how this would end. "Listen up," he said, gathering his team in the limited shelter of the boulders. "When they come, we hold for 30 seconds. Full auto, everything we have. That might convince them we're stronger than we are. Buy us time to displace to the next position." "And after that?" Chen asked. "After that, we repeat until we can't." The radio crackled with broken static. Fragments of words, nothing coherent. The storm was generating enough electromagnetic interference to scramble even their encrypted frequency. They were alone, truly, completely alone. Khalid spoke for the first time in an hour. "I am sorry." His English was precise despite his exhaustion. "This is because of me. This is because of a lot of things," Rourke said. "Save your breath." "No. You should know, I volunteered intelligence because my daughter is sick. They promised medical care in exchange for information." He laughed bitterly. "And now we all die in the snow on Christmas. What is the American word? Ironic?" Mitchell's expression softened slightly. "How old is your daughter?" 7. Her name is Amira. He struggled for the word, the sickness of the lungs. Pneumonia? Yes. Pneumonia. The Taliban said they had medicine. They lied. He looked at Rourke. I chose my daughter's life over my principles. I would do it again, but I am sorry you must die for my choice. Before Rourke could respond, Hodges hissed, "Movement! 2 o'clock!" Shapes appeared in the snow. Multiple targets, moving with tactical discipline, bounding Overwatch. Professional assault tactics. They'd split into fire teams, one element laying down suppression while another advanced. "Wait for it," Rourke whispered. The enemy closed to 50 meters. 40, 35. Machine gun fire erupted from their left flank, the supporting element. Rounds cracked over their position, forcing heads down. The assault element surged forward. "Now!" Rourke screamed. SEAL 7 opened fire with everything they had. The noise was enormous, even in the howling wind. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like strobe lights. The advancing fighters went down, some hit, others diving for cover. But there were so many of them, and SEAL 7's ammunition counter dropped towards 0 with terrifying speed. Rourke fired in controlled bursts, each one aimed, each one counting. A man fell, another. But for every one that went down, 2 more appeared from the white chaos. Mitchell's weapon ran dry. She drew her sidearm, fired 6 rounds, then looked at Rourke with eyes that said everything. This was it. The last moment. The end. Rourke felt a strange calm settle over him. He'd made peace with this possibility years ago, the first time he'd pinned on the Trident. Some debts could only be paid in full. He keyed his radio one last time, knowing it was futile. Any station, this is Kodiak 7, we are in contact and going down. Tell my Wi-Fi. The shot came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The lead enemy fighter simply ceased to exist from the chest up. One moment advancing with weapon raised, the next moment falling backward in a spray of red that was immediately consumed by white snow. The crack of the rifle shot arrived half a second later, muffled and distorted by wind and distance. Rourke's mind, trained to process combat information at inhuman speed, immediately began calculations. Bullet impact to sound delay suggested at least 500 meters. The angle of the wound indicated a downward trajectory from significant elevation. The accuracy in these conditions, winds gusting to 70 miles per hour, horizontal snow, near 0 visibility, was impossible. A second fighter fell, headshot, perfect placement through the small gap between helmet and body armor. Then a third, center mass, through what must have been 3 layers of winter gear. The enemy assault faltered, fighters diving for cover, trying to locate the shooter. Their discipline held for maybe 10 seconds. Then panic set in. Sniper, sniper. Where is he? Rourke pressed himself against the rock, scanning the ridgeline to the north. There, movement, or just snow. The visibility was so poor he couldn't be sure of anything beyond 50 meters. Another shot, another kill. This one at least 700 meters, judging by the sound delay. The target had been moving, trying to retreat. Didn't matter, the bullet found him anyway. Mitchell stared upslope, her expression caught between disbelief and wonder. "Sir, what the hell is that?" "I don't know. Nobody shoots like that. Not in these conditions. Not at this range." Chen had his spotting scope out, trying to pierce the storm. "I've got nothing. Can't see more than 100 meters up that ridge." The enemy fire had stopped completely. Rourke could hear shouting in Pashto, orders and counter-orders. They were trying to organize a response to a threat they couldn't see, couldn't locate, couldn't understand. Patterson whispered, "Ghost sniper. It's real. It has to be. Ghosts don't shoot." 338 Lapua Magnum, Hodges said, examining the surrounding terrain. "Those are long-range precision rounds, maybe 250 grain. And whoever's shooting knows windage like they've got a direct line to God." Another shot. This one took out what Rourke recognized as an enemy squad leader, the man trying to rally his fighters. With his death, the remaining insurgents broke completely. They ran. 30-plus trained fighters abandoned their assault and fled into the storm, leaving their dead behind. The sudden silence was almost painful. Just wind. Just snow. Just the sound of 7 Americans trying to breathe. Rourke keyed his radio, switching to open frequency. Unknown shooter, this is Kodiak 7. Identify yourself. You just saved our lives. Static. Wind noise. Nothing. Repeat. Identify yourself. We are U.S. Navy SEALs conducting an authorized operation. Please respond. Still nothing. Mitchell stood, weapon still trained upslope. Sir, I'm going to say something crazy. Say it. What if Patterson's right? What if there really is a ghost sniper? Some operator who went off the books, lives in these mountains, just helps people? That's insane. So, is what just happened. Rourke couldn't argue with that. He stared up at the ridge where the shots had originated. Somewhere up there, in conditions that should make precision shooting impossible, someone had just executed 6 perfect shots at ranges beyond what most snipers could achieve on a calm day at a range. Khalid was on his knees in the snow, his bound hands raised toward the ridge. He was praying in Arabic, tears freezing on his face. Malik, he whispered, angel. 20 minutes passed. SEAL 7 remained in position, weapons ready, every sense straining against the storm. The enemy didn't return. Whatever force had been hunting them had scattered to the wind, more terrified of the unknown shooter than of leaving a mission incomplete. We need to move, Rourke finally said. Weather's getting worse, and we don't know if they'll regroup. Sir, Chen said carefully, whoever saved us is still up there. Don't we owe them at least an attempt to make contact? Rourke considered. Every tactical instinct said to extract immediately, to use this gift of time to reach the LZ before the window closed. But Chen was right. Someone had intervened, had killed 6 men to keep 7 Americans alive. That deserved acknowledgement. That deserved answers. Mitchell, Webster stays here with Johnson and Khalid. Everyone else, we climb, carefully. The ascent was brutal. The slope was near vertical in places, ice-covered rock that offered minimal purchase. Patterson slipped twice, saved only by Chen's quick reflexes. Hodges nearly went over a cliff that appeared out of nowhere in the white darkness, but they climbed. The shooting position, when they found it, was a narrow ledge, barely wide enough for a person to lie prone. It offered a commanding view of the ravine below, or would have, in clear weather. Now it was just a wind-blasted slab of ice 2 feet wide. But no shooter. No sign anyone had been there. Except, Sir. Hodges pointed with a gloved hand. Bootprints. Small ones. Fresh snow was already filling them, but they were clearly visible, leading away along the ridge, heading north. And brass. 3 shell casings, frozen to the rock. Rourke pried one loose, examined it in his headlamp's red glow. 338 Lapua Magnum, match grade. And look at this. He showed Chen the head stamp. Civilian manufacture, European, not military issue from any nation Rourke knew. Whoever this is, Chen said, they're not on anyone's official roster. A voice from behind them, quiet but carrying perfect clarity despite the wind. No, I'm not. Every SEAL spun, weapons coming up in perfect synchronization. But they were too slow. The figure was already there, had been there, close enough to kill them all before they'd heard a thing. She stood 5'6", maybe 120 soaking wet, wrapped in white winter camouflage that made her nearly invisible against the snow. The rifle slung across her back was a custom build. Rourke recognized an Accuracy International chassis with modifications he'd never seen before. Her face was partially obscured by a balaclava and goggles, but what he could see suggested Slavic features. High cheekbones, pale skin that had seen too much cold weather, eyes the color of winter ice. You can lower your weapons, she said. Her English was flawless but carried the faint trace of an accent. Russian, Ukrainian, if I wanted you dead, you would be. Who are you? Rourke demanded. That depends on who's asking. She moved with fluid economy, never wasting motion. Her hands stayed visible, away from weapons. To the insurgents, I'm a ghost, a curse, a demon that hunts in the storm. To U.S. forces. She paused. I used to be Lieutenant Lena Korovin, Marine Corps Scout Sniper, but that was 4 years ago. Patterson exhaled slowly. You're White Viper, the ghost sniper. The stories are all about you. Stories. Lena's mouth twisted in something that might have been a smile. Stories are easier than the truth. What truth? Rourke asked. That I'm a deserter, that I abandoned my post in my country, that technically you should arrest me right now. She met his eyes without flinching. But you won't. Because I just kept 7 men alive, and because you need me to get off this mountain. We can manage. Can you? She gestured down toward their original position. 2 wounded who can barely walk, a detainee in zip ties, no working radio, and in approximately 90 minutes, that storm front moves from dangerous to fatal. Your extraction bird won't fly. You'll freeze before dawn. Hodges spoke carefully. And you're offering what? Help? I'm offering survival. I know every cave, every shelter, every route through these mountains. I can get you to a position where your radio will work. After that, you're on your own. Why? Chen asked. Why help us at all? Lena was quiet for a long moment, her face unreadable. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Because it's Christmas. Because 4 years ago, I lost my entire team on Christmas Eve. 8 Marines, dead because I made a mistake in windage calculation. 1 degree. That's all it took. She looked down at her hands. I've lived in these mountains since then. Hunting. Surviving. Trying to save enough people to balance the scales. It doesn't work. The math never works. But I keep trying. Rourke studied her. Everything about this situation violated protocol. Accepting help from a deserter, a foreign national, someone who technically belonged in military prison. But protocol didn't account for the reality of 2 dying men and a storm that would kill them all. What happened to your team? He asked quietly. We were providing overwatch for a convoy. I called wind at 6 miles per hour, left to right. It was 8. My shot missed the VIP, hit the vehicle behind. Secondary explosion killed everyone. Her eyes, when they met his, were empty of everything except old, cold pain. I ran, disappeared into the mountains. The Corps declared me Kia after 6 months. Easier than admitting they'd lost me. And you've been here ever since. I've been everywhere. Afghanistan, Pakistan, this shit show that is the borderlands. I move with the seasons, stay ahead of governments and warlords. And when I see someone about to die unnecessarily, I intervene. She straightened. Now we're wasting time. Your man with the chest wound has maybe 2 hours. Do you want my help or not? Rourke made the decision in 3 seconds. Lead the way. Descending with Lena was like moving through the mountain with a native guide who knew every stone, every ice patch, every hidden danger. She moved with absolute confidence, never hesitating, her small form somehow more stable on the treacherous terrain than the larger seals. When they reached the position where Mitchell and the wounded waited, Webster took one look at Lena and said, "Who the hell is this?" "Our salvation," Rourke said. "Can you move?" "I can move." Johnson, on the other hand. Webster's expression was grim. Lena knelt beside Johnson, checking his pupils, his pulse, the seal on his chest wound. Her hands were gentle but professional. Tension pneumothorax. The seal is holding, but his lung is collapsing. We need to decompress. We don't have Webster started. Lena pulled a small medical kit from her jacket, producing a needle that gleamed in the dim light. "I have." "Step aside." She worked with efficient precision, inserting the needle between Johnson's ribs. There was a hiss of air, and suddenly Johnson's breathing eased. Color began returning to his face. "That'll hold for a few hours," Lena said. "But he needs real medical care. How far is your LZ?" 11 clicks northeast, Rourke said. "But in this weather, there's a valley 3 clicks north. The terrain blocks wind, creates a microclimate. We can get radio signal from there, call your bird in, but we need to move now." She was already scanning the back trail, her rifle unslung, eyes never stopping. Rourke recognized the behavior. This was someone who'd lived too long with death at her shoulder, who never fully relaxed, never fully trusted the peace. They moved out in a staggered column. Lena took point, reading the terrain like a language only she understood. Mitchell and Chen carried Webster. Hodges and Patterson supported Johnson. Rourke and Ramirez bracketed Khalid. For 20 minutes, they made good progress. The terrain descended into a series of interconnected ravines, each offering more shelter from the wind. The temperature actually rose a few degrees as they lost elevation. Then Lena stopped so abruptly that Mitchell nearly ran into her back. "Contact front," she whispered. 20 fighters. Maybe more. They've organized faster than I expected. "Can we go around?" Rourke asked. Not without adding 2 hours, and we don't have 2 hours. She considered for a moment, her expression calculating. We go through, hard and fast. I'll take high ground, provide overwatch. That's suicide. You'll be exposed. I'm always exposed, Captain, it's how I live. She pointed to a rocky outcrop 30 meters up the slope. That position gives me sight lines on 3 approach vectors. You push straight through the valley floor. When they react to you, I'll hit them from the flank. Classic L-shaped ambush. We're low on ammo. Then make every shot count. She was already moving, scrambling up the slope with goat-like agility. Give me 3 minutes to get into position. You'll know when to move. Rourke watched her disappear into the snow and darkness. We're trusting our lives to a deserter we met 20 minutes ago. Sir, Mitchell said quietly. We're already trusting our lives to her. We have been since she took that first shot. Fair point. Everyone check weapons. 3 minutes, then we move. The wait was agonizing. Rourke could hear movement, ahead voices, equipment. The enemy was close, too close. If they stumbled into Seal 7 before Lena was ready, a single shot cracked across the valley. One of the distant voices cut off mid-word. Now! Rourke shouted. Move! 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 They burst from cover, weapons up, moving in the tactical formation they drilled 10,000 times. The enemy was exactly where Lena had said, clustered in a natural choke point, perfect for an ambush if Seal 7 had walked into it blind. But they weren't walking into it. They were running through it with covering fire from an impossible angle. Lena's rifle spoke again and again. Each shot was a death sentence delivered from 600 meters away in conditions that would make most snipers pack up and go home. An insurgent with an RPG went down before he could fire. A machine gunner toppled from his position. A commander gesturing orders simply vanished in a spray of crimson. Seal 7 added their fire to the chaos. It wasn't overwhelming firepower they still had, maybe 60 rounds total, but it was precise, disciplined, professional. Every shot was aimed. Every shot had purpose. The enemy broke. Again. These fighters had courage, but courage couldn't stand against an opponent who killed from shadows and angles that shouldn't exist. They ran, leaving their dead and wounded behind, scattering into the storm. Seal 7 didn't stop. They pushed through the kill zone, past bodies that were already being covered by fresh snow, into the valley beyond. Lena appeared beside them as if she'd teleported, not even breathing hard. Keep moving. They'll regroup eventually. We have maybe 30 minutes. How did you? Patterson started. Later. Run now. The valley Lena led them to was exactly as she described, a sheltered bowl, where ancient rock slides had created a barrier against the worst of the wind. The temperature was almost balmy by comparison, only 20 below instead of 40. More importantly, when Rourke tried his radio, he got static instead of dead air. Kodiak 7 to Papa 6, how? Copy. Broken, fragmented, but there. Diakon, read you 2, what status? Papa 6, we need immediate extraction. 2 urgent medical, 1 routine. We have package secure. Requesting helo to grid November Quebec 743862. Confirm. Firm extraction. Weather bad. Sunrise 3 hours. Can you? Affirmative. We can hold. Kodiak 7 out. He looked at his team. At Webster, gray-faced but still functioning. At Johnson, barely conscious but breathing. At the others, exhausted, frost-bitten, but alive. 3 hours, he said. We hold this position for 3 hours, then we go home. Everyone collapsed in various states of exhaustion. Mitchell started distributing the last of their rations, energy bars that had frozen into solid bricks. Hodges checked ammunition. Chen tended to the wounded with what little medical supplies remained. Lena stood apart, as she had since joining them. Always watching, always separate, never quite part of the group. Rourke approached her carefully. We need to talk. About what? About what happens when that bird arrives. About whether you're coming with us. She was quiet for a long time, staring out at the storm. I'm not going back, Captain. I can't. Can't or won't? Does it matter? She turned to face him. I'm a deserter. If I return, it's a court-martial, prison, dishonorable discharge. Everything I was, everything I earned, wiped away because I couldn't handle losing my team. You saved our lives. That has to count for something. It counts for exactly nothing in military law. I abandoned my post. I fled the country. I've lived illegally in foreign territory for 4 years. She laughed bitterly. I'm technically more criminal than your detainee. Khalid, sitting nearby, spoke up. You are not a criminal. You are a guardian. You saved us when you had no obligation to do so. I saved you because it's Christmas, Lena said softly. Because 4 years ago, my team died on Christmas Eve. Because I thought if I could keep one group alive on this date, maybe it would mean something. Maybe it would balance the scales. Does it? Rourke asked. No, it never does. But I keep trying. Mitchell joined them, her expression thoughtful. You know what I think? I think you've been punishing yourself for 4 years for something that wasn't your fault. Wind changes, calculations fail. That's war. That's the job. I was the spotter. It was my responsibility. And you've paid that debt 20 times over. How many people have you saved in 4 years? I don't keep count. Liar. I bet you know exactly. I bet you remember every face, every name if you got it, every person you pulled from the fire. Mitchell's voice was gentle but firm. You can't run forever, Lena. Eventually, you have to come home. Home. Lena repeated the word like it was foreign. I don't have a home anymore. Rourke made a decision. Yes, you do. It's wherever people who honor the same oath gather. The oath doesn't have an expiration date, and it doesn't care if you made a mistake. The core. The core is made of people. People who understand that sometimes good operators have bad days. People who know the difference between cowardice and trauma. He met her eyes. Come back with us. Face the music. Let's see if we can't find a way through this that doesn't involve you dying alone in these mountains. Lena was quiet for a long time. Rourke could see the war happening behind her eyes, hope against fear, desire against resignation. Finally, she spoke. You don't understand. When my team died, I didn't just lose them, I lost myself. The person I was, the confident Marine who never missed a shot, who believed in the mission, who thought she was invincible, she died with them. What's left is just this, a shadow, a ghost. Then come back and find out who you can be now, Rourke said. You're not the first operator to lose a team. You won't be the last. But most of us don't have to carry it alone. The next 2 hours passed in a strange twilight zone of exhaustion and hypervigilance. The team established a defensive perimeter, with Lena insisting on taking the most exposed position. She lay prone on a rocky outcrop, her rifle trained on the approaches, as still as the stone beneath her. Webster worked on Johnson with the supplies from Lena's kit, which turned out to be surprisingly comprehensive. Where'd you get this stuff? He asked her at one point. I raid supply caches. Taliban, coalition, whoever. I take what I need, leave the rest. She didn't look away from her sight picture. In 4 years, you learn which caves hide which supplies. You've been living off the land this whole time? Land, caches, occasional trades with villages that don't ask questions. You'd be surprised what you can survive on when the alternative is death. As dawn approached, not that they could see it through the storm, but the light changed from black to dark gray, Lena began to talk. Perhaps it was exhaustion. Perhaps it was the knowledge that in an hour, her isolation would end, for better or worse. But the story came out. My team was called Devil Dogs, 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines. Best damn shooters in the Corps, or so we thought. Christmas Eve, 2021. We were supporting a raid on a Taliban leadership compound in Helmand. My spotter, his name was Marcus Chen. The SEAL Chen looked up sharply. Same name as me? Same name, same personality, actually. Funny, kind, never met a silence he couldn't fill with a bad joke. Lena's voice carried a ghost of warmth. We'd worked together for 2 years. I trusted him more than anyone. She adjusted her scope minutely, tracking something in the distance that only she could see. The mission was supposed to be simple, Overwatch, while the assault team made entry. I had one job: eliminate the VIP if he tried to run. When the assault started, he appeared exactly where Intel said he would, moving toward a vehicle in the courtyard. I calculated wind, range, elevation, everything by the book. I told Marcus wind 6, left to right, range 732 meters. He confirmed. I breathed out, I squeezed. The silence stretched. Rourke found himself holding his breath. The shot was perfect, Lena continued. Perfect sight picture, perfect trigger pull, perfect follow-through. But the wind wasn't 6, It was 8, gusting to 10. My bullet missed the VIP by 2 feet and struck the vehicle behind him. The fuel tank went up. The explosion triggered a secondary blast ammunition stored in the trunk. That blast killed the assault team's medic and 2 riflemen. Then, the compound defenders rallied and counterattacked. By the time we extracted, 8 Marines were dead, including Marcus. A sniper from the compound got him in the throat while we were repositioning. He died choking on his own blood while I tried to keep pressure on the wound. Her voice remained steady, clinical. I carried him for 3 clicks to the extract point. He was already gone, but I couldn't leave him. Wouldn't. They gave me a medal, she said. Can you believe that? A Bronze Star for valor, for continuing to provide covering fire while under attack. They wanted to make me a hero. All I could think about was how Marcus died because I miscalculated by 2 miles per hour of wind. Khalid spoke softly from his position. But you continued fighting. You saved others even after you lost your friend. I was running on autopilot. It wasn't courage, it was just momentum. The body keeps fighting even when the mind has given up. Lena's shoulders hunched slightly. After the mission, I tried to continue. I really did. But every time I looked through a scope, I saw Marcus's face. Every wind calculation became a choice between accuracy and his memory. So I walked away. Literally. I left my rifle in the armory, my gear in the barracks, and I walked into the Afghan countryside. They searched for 6 months. Then they declared me KIA and moved on. And you've been here ever since, Mitchell said. I've been everywhere and nowhere. These mountains don't care about rank or failure. They only care if you can survive. And it turns out I'm very good at surviving, even when I don't particularly want to. The radio crackled. Kodiak 7, Papa 6, we are inbound, ETA 20 minutes, pop smoke for visual confirmation. Rourke keyed the mic. Roger that, Papa 6. Be advised, we have 1 additional passenger. Friendly disposition. Will explain upon arrival. Additional, say again? You heard me. 1 extra. It's complicated. A pause. Then, Roger. We'll make room. Papa 6 out. Lena stood, slinging her rifle. Complicated is putting it mildly, Captain. What are you going to do? Patterson asked. When we land, are you really going to turn yourself in? I don't know, Lena admitted. For 4 years, I've known exactly what I needed to do: survive, hunt, help where I can. Now I have no idea what comes next. Rourke pulled a green smoke grenade from his vest. What comes next is we get you medical attention, warm food, and a chance to tell your story to people who'll understand. After that, we figure it out. Just like that? Just like that. You saved 7 lives tonight, Lena. You've probably saved dozens more in the years before. That has to count for something in the grand equation. The sound of rotors appeared in the distance, barely audible over the wind. The helo was coming. They were 90 seconds from extraction when the enemy appeared. Not the scattered, demoralized fighters they'd faced before. This was a fresh force, moving with discipline and purpose. 25 to 30 combatants, armed with heavy weapons, advancing from 3 directions. Contact! Hodges shouted. They're trying to cut us off from the LZ. The timing was perfect, too perfect to be coincidence. Someone had been tracking them, waiting for the exact moment when the helo was committed to the pickup. If SEAL 7 was pinned down, the bird would have to abort or risk being shot down. Mitchell, Chen, get the wounded to the LZ, Rourke ordered. Hodges, Ramirez, Patterson, with me. We hold here. Sir, we've got maybe 30 rounds total. Then make them count. Lena was already moving, not toward the LZ but toward the highest point overlooking the valley. Captain, get them out. I'll handle the pursuit. There's too many. There are exactly the right number for what I need to do. She reached her position, a narrow ledge with a commanding view of all 3 approach routes. I've lived in these mountains for 4 years, waiting for a chance to balance the scales. This is it. This is my moment. You'll be completely exposed. I've been exposed since the day I lost my team. Now I'm choosing when to stand and fight. She settled into her shooting position with the ease of someone returning home. Get your people to that helo, Captain. That's an order. You don't give me orders, Lieutenant. Then consider it a request from one operator to another. Let me do what I do best. Let me save one more group before I face whatever comes next. The helo was visible now, descending through the storm. 60 seconds, maybe less, until it touched down. The enemy opened fire. RPGs streaked through the air. Machine gun fire stitched across the snow. They were trying to make the LZ too hot for the extraction. Lena's rifle answered. The sound was steady, methodical, almost peaceful. One shot every 3 seconds. Every shot a kill. She worked from the outside in, systematically dismantling the attack before it could develop momentum. The RPG gunner fell with a round through his chest. The machine gunner's head snapped back. A squad leader coordinating the assault dropped mid-gesture. It was surgical, perfect. The kind of shooting that made other snipers quit in despair. How is she doing that? Patterson breathed. She's letting go, Rourke said quietly. She's not calculating, not thinking, not fighting her training. She's just being what she was always meant to be. The enemy assault wavered, then broke, but not before one fighter got off a shot with an under-barrel grenade launcher. The round impacted 10 feet from Lena's position. She was thrown sideways by the blast, slammed against the rock face. Her rifle skittered across the ledge. "Lena!" Mitchell screamed. But Lena was already moving, stunned, bleeding from a dozen shrapnel wounds, but moving. She retrieved her rifle, chambered a round, and killed the grenadier before he could fire again. Then she stood fully exposed on the ledge, silhouetted against the gray sky, and fired 4 more rounds in rapid succession. 4 more kills. The enemy ran. "Go!" Lena shouted. "Get to the helo." The bird was down, rotors screaming, crew chief waving them forward. Mitchell and Chen loaded Johnson and Webster. Khalid climbed aboard, looking back at the ridge where Lena stood. Rourke keyed his radio. "Lena, we're clear. Get down here. That's an order." "I'm hit, Captain. I won't make it before they regroup." "Then we'll wait." "No, you won't. You'll leave, and you'll live, and you'll remember that some debts can be paid after all." Her voice was steady, despite the pain he could hear in it. "Tell the Corps. Tell them Lieutenant Korovin died in the line of duty on December 25, 2025. Let that be the story. You're not dead yet, Lena." "No, but I will be if I come down. Those wounds. I'm bleeding out, Captain. I have maybe 10 minutes. I can spend them running and dying on your helo, or I can spend them making sure you get away clean." The helo's engines were screaming. The pilot's voice crackled. "Kodiak 7, we are taking fire. We need to go. Now." Rourke made the hardest decision of his life. "Roger." Lifting off. "Captain, wait!" Mitchell grabbed his arm. "We can't leave her." "She's right. She won't make it. And if we stay, we all die." He met Mitchell's eyes. Sometimes the only way to honor a sacrifice is to accept it. The helo lifted, banking hard away from the valley. Through the open door, Rourke could see Lena on her ledge. She raised one hand in a final salute. Then she turned back to her rifle, back to the scope, back to doing what she did best. The last thing they heard on the radio was her voice, steady and calm. "Kodiak 7, this is White Viper. Mission complete. Target suppressed. Extract clean. Tell them I found my way home." Then static. The flight back to base took 40 minutes through weather that threatened to bring the bird down every minute. But the pilot was skilled, and the bird was tough, and they made it. Johnson survived. Webster would keep his leg. Khalid was processed and provided medical care for his daughter as promised. In the debrief, Rourke told the truth. All of it. The ambush, the impossible shots, the woman who'd saved them and then chosen to stand alone. The intelligence officer looked skeptical. "You're telling me a Marine deserter from 4 years ago just happened to be in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time, with exactly the right skills? I'm telling you that on Christmas night, when we were about to die, someone intervened. Someone who knew those mountains, knew how to shoot in impossible conditions, and knew what it meant to carry the dead." Rourke's voice was flat. "Believe it or don't, the bullet wounds in those fighters are real. We're alive. That's what matters. And you have no physical evidence of this ghost sniper?" Mitchell held up a shell casing. 338 Lapua Magnum. Civilian manufacture. European origin. Fired from a position we located on the ridge. "That could be from anyone." "Could be," Rourke agreed. Or it could be from Lieutenant Lena Korovin, USMC scout sniper, who was declared Kia in 2022, but actually spent 4 years in the mountains trying to save enough people to balance the 8 she lost. Silence. The intelligence officer finally spoke. For the record, Lieutenant Korovin is dead. She died on December 25, 2025, while providing cover for a SEAL extraction under heavy fire. Her actions saved 7 American lives. The Corps will posthumously award her the Navy Cross. That's the official story. And the unofficial story? Mitchell asked. There is no unofficial story, petty officer. There's just a shelf full of reports about a ghost sniper that nobody can prove exists, and nobody can prove doesn't. That's how legends work. 6 months later, Rourke returned to the Hindu Kush as part of a training mission. During a lull in the schedule, he hiked to the coordinates where Lena had made her stand. The ledge was empty. No body, no rifle, no evidence anyone had been there. But someone had piled stones into a small cairn. And tucked into the rocks was a piece of paper, wrapped in plastic to protect it from the weather. The note was in Russian first, then English below. Some debts cannot be balanced with blood, but we try anyway. For Marcus, and for all the others, White Viper is retired. Lena Korovin is going home. Finally. Rourke added a stone to the cairn. Then he stood at attention and saluted the empty air. Somewhere in the distance, he thought he heard a rifle shot, just one, clean and precise. Or maybe it was just the wind. He chose to believe it was the wind. On Christmas Eve 2026, at Marine Corps Base Quantico, a new name was added to the Scout Sniper Hall of Fame. Lieutenant Lena Korovin, KIA, Navy Cross recipient. The plaque listed her confirmed kills, her service record, her final action. It did not mention that 3 separate intelligence services had reported sightings of a female sniper operating in conflict zones across Central Asia. It did not mention the Taliban fighters who whispered of a ghost who protected the innocent. It did not mention the SEAL team that swore they'd been saved by someone who shouldn't exist. Some stories don't need verification. They just need to be true enough. In a small chapel on the base, Captain Jake Rourke stood before the plaque. His wife stood beside him, holding their 3-month-old daughter. Other SEALs from the team had come: Mitchell, Chen, Hodges, Patterson, even Khalid, now a U.S. citizen, working as a translator. "Do you think she's really dead?" Mitchell asked quietly. Rourke thought about the note, about the empty ledge, about the stories that kept coming from the mountains. "I think," he said carefully, "that Lieutenant Korovin died exactly when she needed to die. What came after? That's someone else's story." Outside, snow began to fall. Just a light dusting. Nothing like the blizzard that had tried to kill them a year ago. But enough to remind them. Enough to remember. Enough to believe that somewhere, in the high places where the wind howls and the snow never fully melts, a ghost still stands watch. And that on Christmas night, when the darkness seems overwhelming and hope seems lost, sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible happens. Sometimes, someone stands on a ridge you can't see, takes a shot you can't make, and gives you one more chance to make it home. That's not a ghost story. That's a Christmas miracle. And miracles don't need explanations. They just need to be believed.